Why would you invite a serial killer into your home every Sunday night?
I wish I had a nickel for everybody who came up to me and said, "Oh, Dexter, that was the best." I mean, it just weaves a kind of crazy magic.
When my parents saw that I got the audition, they were like, "You're auditioning for Dexter."
How do you not know about Dexter? You have had to have been born yesterday to not know how important that show was to so many viewers.
You can't name another show that gives you more shocks and surprises and wrenching turns of plot. It is fantastic storytelling.
This is my life. A wolf among sheep. I might still be a monster, but I'm an evolving monster.
Who is Dexter? I still don't know. He remains pretty elusive and mysterious to me.
The great thing about Dexter and how Michael C. Hall plays him is that he makes him like an everyday man.
You coming line dancing tonight?
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it, Pastor Brian.
He's someone who people identify with and maybe even root for because of the unique responsibility he's taken for his dark side.
He connects to the audience. He talks to the audience. He talks about sometimes when he's unsure, when he's vulnerable, when he's searching. And then he still has to stick to his code.
He's someone who is inclined to think of himself as monstrous or other than human, but it's his monstrosity that makes him human.
You're a serial killer? I was.
The exciting part is to be able to take a show like this and do something new with it. A show that had been on for 8 years and is already in the zeitgeist.
Hi. We need everything you have that's warm.
It's something, given the way the show ended, that I imagined might happen, but there's a big difference between imagining it and actually living inside the imagined, you know?
Came up with the storyline. Took a couple of weeks. I was on Martha's Vineyard at the time. Flew to New York. I met with Michael and pitched him what the show could be, the characters and motivations and all the juicy bits. He basically said, "I love it." Gave me a hug. He said, "I'm in."
Tom, will you start on Michael?
Yeah.
And Michael, take one step up so that you're stepping down and be on Michael when he says, "Wait, what's that?"
When I got the call that the show was coming back, I was incredibly excited. I just couldn't imagine not wanting to be a part of it.
Michael and I actually met for coffee, and he sort of just talked about, what if this kind of happened? And then I called my representation, and I said, "Is it any more realized?" And then they said, "Oh, an offer's come in." That's when I took the call to my driveway and looked like a crazy person.
I remember exactly where I was. Just got home from work. I was in a car. Clyde called, says, "What would you do if I told you we were going to do one more season? Would you be interested?" I said, "Would I be interested? What, are you kidding me? Of course."
The fact that the stars aligned and people were available and on board collectively to do it, people from the original band. We got the band back together, basically. We worked really hard to have it be not Dexter Season 9, but to acknowledge the fact that this is a man who's been working for almost a decade to change himself.
It feels like a new dream and like a new nightmare. There's so much that's new about it. It doesn't feel familiar in a lot of ways, and there's so much that's familiar about it that it almost feels like there's a bend in the matrix.
There was a collective appreciation for the fundamentals of the Dexter DNA that would infuse what was very much a new landscape. It's kind of a narrow bullseye to hit. I was confident that they'd be able to do it.
Action!
Stepping back on set was like stepping into an old pair of shoes.
The first time you feel it is when suddenly you see trucks outside and you start to hear power saws and hammers and nail guns and everything. And that's kind of the first time that it feels real.
I think a lot of the why now has to do with the sense that enough time has passed that there are storytelling possibilities that didn't exist 5 years ago and that won't exist 5 years from now.
Evidence from the Congregational Church tent. Keep an iron leg safe, one pie at a time. I was a huge fan of the show, and I was always dreaming like, "Ooh, I hope I get to be killed by him." But I mean, obviously I was too young, so I couldn't, but it's a really dope show.
As soon as I got the scripts, I sat down and read all 10. Once I read the first script, I was like,
I can't not read the second one, and then so on, so on, so on.
I started watching the first season while I was sort of halfway through the audition process, and I was finishing the first season about when Michael texted me when I got the role to say, hey man, congratulations, this is gonna be great. And my sort of like nerves around like, oh, texting Michael C. Hall, like were very quickly overwhelmed by like, I'm losing my mind and I need to see somebody.
Can you keep a secret? You bet.
He's a guy who, when we first met him way back when, was completely in control.
Tráilers. Visita mi
And
canal.
once he started to indulge his blooming appetite for humanity and human connection, he started to lose that control. And he's regained a control over his life when we meet him here, having completely abstained from the monstrous behavior and really trying to have a normal life.
Morning, Zach.
Morning, Mr. Lindsay.
Becca, Scott.
Lindsay. Are you coming to the match next week?
Sure gonna try. Go Hawks!
Jim Lindsay lives in a tiny town called Iron Lake in upstate New York.
There's only 3 police officers, so that in itself should say a lot. The communities are very tight. They've known you since the day you were born, and they're also probably the same ones who are going to bury you. It's that kind of a vibe.
It's a community in which he has been able to cobble together probably the most legitimate approximation of an actual life. He has a job, he has colleagues, people know his fake name. He is in a relationship.
I know you've been private about your past. It's okay. Everyone has secrets.
Angela is the chief of police. She's a single mother. She is Jim Lindsay's girlfriend.
Let's dance. Can't let Esther and Alan show us up.
For her, he's just this like normal, happy, easygoing guy.
He's as close as he's ever been to entertaining the idea that he can have a real life, that he can maybe even have something approximating happiness.
He has been abstinent from killing for almost a decade and is determined to do that. He keeps to his routine so that he can seem human, so that he can seem normal. The word seem is the word that we're looking for because he's not normal. And we always have to remember that.
It's real cold today.
You're the one that picked this place.
Michael had come up with the idea of doing it in a new place. We shot in this small town in western Massachusetts called Shelburne Falls, the prettiest town I've ever seen.
As soon as I walked into Shelburne Falls, is where Iron Lake is, immediately I drove in. I said, this is it. This is the town.
Being able to step outside of a real store, cross the bridge, walk into the police station, just gives it a real scope and sense of grounded reality that I think lacked in the previous seasons where we were faking everything. We were shooting in Los Angeles for Miami. Here, wherever we point the camera, we're in a real place, a real environment, and it contributes to the feel of it.
It's cold, it's winter, it has a different energy.
New location means an opportunity to give it a new look, a new feel.
And shooting in anamorphic, monochromatic, with like different color tones, all of that was part of the design.
To give it a completely fresh start and a completely new look was really enticing.
The way that it's shot is just so beautiful and cinematic. It feels epic. And it's just a different world that we've not been in.
The show has earned a right to be still. Dexter's gone to this place where he wants to be alone. The locations and the environment really just added to this new Dexter.
All that sort of recontextualization helped make the transition into the life of somebody who's been living for almost a decade. Even the cameras haven't been on. It helped just sort of fill in the imaginative gaps. I think people might miss the sunshine, but the snow is pretty cool too.
It's on the floor.
In the original series, Dexter has a relationship with his dead father. That relationship is damaged and maybe even permanently severed at the end of the series proper, but Dexter has this new internalized relationship with a dead family member, in this case, his sister.
Are you ready for tonight?
Deb is such an important part of Dexter because she's always been the one to point out the wrong.
I think Deb was the heartbeat to the Tin Man. She kept the blood moving and kept the hope alive that things would be better or soften or safer, or that things would look, I almost said, more closer to the light side than the dark. But she held him accountable. Deb cared for and nurtured the potential that he had and reminded him that it was there and it could look different.
With that fundamental relationship no longer a part of the show, and as much as she was no longer alive, I wondered how the life of the show would feel without her. So when the idea that she was the new sort of embodied companion or voice on his shoulder emerged, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that feels right, you know?
Stop.
Oh, what? You gonna kill me? Again? Or are other people gonna die? Because that's what always happens, right? Right?
Not this time, no.
Deb represents not only his conscious, but his subconscious. She represents the part of him that has doubt. She represents his need to stay abstinent. She's part of his mind. She's not her own person.
Ultimately, she's a reflection of Dexter's multifaceted relationship to himself and representing an internalized voice that he's sort of projected onto his internalized version of her.
I'm Dexter's idea of who she was. It's refreshing and comforting to see the different ways that he did experience her.
I'm so sick of your bullshit.
Sometimes we'll see a conversation in which Dexter and Deb are very much at odds as a way to dramatize what is essentially a person who's very much at odds with himself.
And through the course of the year, she becomes less strident. And as Dexter inevitably moves down his path, she, if not encourages him, stops fighting him because the larger part of his mind has already made up its mind.
Everyone close to you dies. That's why we're here.
For the character, I mean, I think it's been very satisfying. It represents a desire on his part to atone for something that he holds himself responsible for, her death. I think his abstinence is completely wrapped up in the good graces of her ghost.
Also, cinematically, we think it's very interesting. And we love Jen. I think it was just wonderful to see them together, to see this shorthand, to see them screwing around when they weren't shooting and off in the corner singing and making each other laugh. I mean, they're great, great friends. I mean, it's no secret that they were married at one time. And they've maintained a friendship all these years.
It has been so much fun. Michael and I laugh our asses off and hope that people aren't listening to our mics because we're making jokes all day. And it's just been so awesome.
What the hell are you doing?
Are you Dexter Morgan?
Visita mi canal.
It's me, Harrison.
Dexter's son shows up. Someone who Dexter had forsaken a relationship with in order to protect.
I hope you find whoever you're looking for.
Dexter initially is disinclined to admit to Harrison that he's who he is and turns him away. And almost immediately has a crack and kills someone.
Hello, Dexter Morgan.
Dexter's been away for nearly a decade with no code, so he's unchecked, unbalanced. What kind of monster will he be?
He's able to cut off the connection with his son in the midst of this abstinence, but he opens the floodgates of his murderousness, and the appetite for the light is whetted as he indulges in the darkness, and he wants to reach out to his son, and I think imagines that cultivating that relationship will help him to get back on the straight and narrow. I mean, it's complicated.
You were right. I'm Dexter Morgan. Your father.
The whole concept of being born in blood stems from Dexter's childhood. He was a toddler when his mother, who was involved with drug dealers, was brutally murdered with chainsaws in a shipping container at the docks. And Dexter was there, crying in that blood for Lord knows how long.
He was born in blood, just like you.
He has my dark passenger.
When Rita got murdered by Trinity in the bathtub, Harrison was a toddler sitting on the bloody floor when Dexter discovers him.
What do you do to deal?
I wrap bad guys in plastic and kill them. I'm not sure.
And there's a question of inherited trauma.
On one hand, he desperately hopes that Harrison doesn't have the dark passenger and doesn't remember and doesn't have those sort of prints on his brain. But on the other hand, he's a guy who is desperate for connection and is an incredibly isolated and lonely guy. And what more legitimate connection could there be than to discover that your son is afflicted by the very thing that isolates you? And so both are, I think, alive in him at once.
Are you your worst nightmare?
Or maybe you're mine.
Any day when we're shooting and Dexter's doing a kill is an exciting day.
Even in the past, the whole crew, including myself, would get excited. We'd call it, we gotta kill, we gotta kill.
Nice to meet you, Jasper.
The real first kill room that we see is when we kill this character, Jasper, who's a drug dealer who is responsible for Harrison ODing and almost dying. In a strange and twisted way, it felt like going home. Michael was excited that day. We shot both at our practical house, and then we built the kill room set on another stage. And everybody was in their element. Not only were we enjoying it, we were enjoying the fact that the audience is going to enjoy seeing this ritual fulfilled once again.
There was a sense, for me certainly, and I think collectively, like, oh yeah, this is who this guy actually is.
This is Kat. She helps me.
There is a way that we shoot the kill rooms, and I defaulted right back into that. That was the one place where I was like, you know, the look may be different, the vibe of the show may be different, but this is a touchstone. This is something that is sacred to Dexter and to the audience, and getting back to it was really cool and really easy to do.
The crew was totally into it. Everywhere from the concept of looking at drawings to watching the construction and doing the details in there and putting the pictures of his victims on the wall as Dexter would do.
She's gonna grab me, we're gonna do the exchange, and then we're gonna just do it again without it. All right.
The kill room is so iconic to Dexter that we forget that for Michael, it's its own experience. I literally watch him walk into the kill room set with a smile on his face.
And Michael, as an actor, goes to another place on a day in which Dexter's killing, and we honor that. You know, the main note I get from Michael on a script is, can I not say the words you just wrote and do it with my face? And the answer is always yes, because he's so expressive and it's a master class in acting.
Ah, boy, must be nice. Having a hero for a son.
Kurt, played by the amazing Clancy Brown, is the father of Dexter's victim, Matt Caldwell. We also discover that Kurt is himself a killer. You know, Dexter's a bit of a magnet for those kind of folks.
In all of the seasons, there's one sort of uber serial killer. And in every season, it reflects somewhat on Dexter. So you think, well, this could be what Dexter became if he didn't have Harry on his shoulders. So Kurt is very much like that. Kurt is very much the same psychopathy that Dexter has, but has coped with it in a different way.
Come on! Run! Run! No, this is not the way it's supposed to happen, no!
Kurt is the killer of those women on the missing women board, and Dexter knows he's a serial killer.
Like so many things that make Dexter fun, it's two things at once. He's as close to a peer as he might find, and also a total adversary.
Kurt has begun this long seduction of Harrison because Dexter and Harrison don't really quite know how to get along. Harrison has 10 years of anger and abandonment to work out with his father.
So it becomes a competition kind of for Harrison between Kurt and Dexter that I don't think either one realizes initially. Also, Kurt and Dexter recognize each other the way predators recognize each other.
You have a suspect?
I have a theory. Kurt Caldwell.
Angela's starting to suspect that things are not right with Kurt.
You think you can get rid of everything? But something always gets left behind.
You're right. Something always gets left behind.
Kurt comes to learn that. Dexter killed his son.
He's just got one final piece of business, and he's literally trying to smoke them out so he can take them out. He doesn't realize that they're not there.
Okay, we're gonna let
We built an actual cabin. We also built the interior on a stage, which matched exactly. How I built the cabin is supposed to be a log cabin. We took real log siding, but I built it traditionally out of lumber and sticks, and it made it look like a cabin both inside and outside. So you can see here, this is only the thickness of the log, which in reality, you know, a log would be here, so we had to make this thick, so when you saw the transitions going into the doorways and windows, it felt like it was a real thick log. And then we put the inside, the siding. Because of the location that we chose, which was a peninsula, it was hard access to get in there. So it was stake bed trucks only, so it was tough getting in and out, getting the equipment back there. And that's how I had to design it, that we built it with non-logs, because I couldn't get a big crane in there to maneuver the logs. But like the fireplace was real, we knew we were gonna have real fire in it. Then I veneered it with rock and stone rather than fake stone. Entrances and exits and the floor accommodating, you know, X amount of weight and crew. You could live in there, except for the plumbing and the wiring.
Everybody set? Fire department's ready?
Knowing I was building it to burn down, it hits you a little bit. But at the end, the way we did it, it looked, you know, the real deal.
My mom was killed by a serial killer.
You don't remember anything about it, do you?
No. Season 4 ended with the most astonishing surprise, and it was so appalling. The Trinity Killer murdered Dexter's wife. The story delivers such a devastating blow to Dexter. I mean, it's the kind of thing that would change a person forever.
And I think Dexter has been reeling ever since. That was the first moment that he lost control and the first time the door opened to a chaos that continues to swirl around him. He lived to walk away and Trinity died, but Trinity blew up his world and inflicted on his son an equivalent trauma to the one that made Dexter who he is. So, yeah, he did a real number on him.
Harrison had listened to a podcast and learned that Trinity had killed his mother. That triggers a flashback for him.
This is the Dexter set. I'm off to work. I got the phone call months ago. Clyde Phillips just called me out of the blue. I hadn't even known they were rebooting Dexter at that point. And he asked me if I would come and just bring back the Trinity Killer to scare the daylights out of everybody for a second time. And of course I said yes, like, name the date.
There. Daddy will be home soon.
We're doing a flashback, and we're doing what was the big scene in the season finale of season 4 with John Lithgow, Trinity Killer.
It's exactly the same bathroom that the Trinity Killer had killed her in, but I'd never seen it before. I execute this hideous crime off screen, but you came and saw the end result.
It's weird when I'm reading a script. This is the first time ever that I've now building a set that I designed 13 years ago.
I saw the drawings and then came down while they were building it and saw it, and it was really, really evocative.
Down to every little detail, down to some of the artwork, which we actually duplicated ourselves because we couldn't get that anymore. I had to have special tile brought in from overseas because they don't make it here anymore. So it was a little bit challenging to copy it. And when John walked in this morning and saw the set, he kind of like, whoa, I'm back in time. It was kind of cool for everybody.
Interestingly, I brought back good memories of the good times I had doing that show. Then when we did the actual kill, with the blood coming out of the bathtub and approaching baby Harrison, like the blob getting closer and closer. It was really harrowing. And we had a young child in there who was not enjoying himself. And John Lithgow got down on one knee and sang the child a song, just so we got that one moment. It took 25 minutes and we got the 4 seconds we needed.
It's a certain perversity that almost shocks me, how much I enjoy scaring people with this ghoulish material.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miami Metro Homicide Captain Angel Batista.
In the 5th episode, Angela goes to New York for a missing persons conference. And who's speaking there, lo and behold? Angel Batista.
She's originally trying to get him to help her figure out what happened to all of these women who've gone missing.
Batista is giving Angela the advice to follow your gut, follow your leads, find out all the specifics of all the cases. So he's basically just, consulting on police work.
Talks about the Bay Harbor Butcher a little bit, and he talks about the fact that he lost a lot of friends, his ex-wife, who is LaGuardia, his ex-cop, Deb.
Her brother, too, tragic, really. He had a little son. What was his name? Oh, yeah. Harrison. Cute kid.
And that twigs something in Angela.
She connects some dots with what he has said in terms of patterns.
He said his dad's name isn't Jim Lindsay.
I mean, at that point, she's definitely certain that something is wrong. His cabin is burned down. Like, there's so much foul play happening, and he's being so strange.
Dexter Morgan, you're under arrest for the murder of Matthew Stern Caldwell.
He's also the person who killed Jasper. He's also the person who's killed Miles. He's also the person who's done all of these things.
She knows who he is. She knows he's the Bay Harbor Butcher. He gets caught. It's the #1 rule of the code is don't get caught.
And he knows that they're coming up to take him back to Miami, and he will go to jail for the rest of his life. And so his whole thing is protecting himself and protecting Harrison, and they want to escape.
Hey, Logan, could I get some water?
And all he wants is his keys. He wants to get out of there. And Logan resists.
I was excited to die by Dexter. I mean, let's just be real. That's kind of fun.
Dexter had to do it, but it means a lot to Harrison because Dexter had been training Harrison all year about do it for good and make sure you're killing the right person and that there's a good reason to do it. And the fact that it did not fit the code creates several problems in the father and son relationship.
When Dexter kills the most righteous dude in town, it kind of invalidates everything he's been selling to Harrison. Feels like, oh, this is a sham. You're a sham.
It was an accident. Dexter had to do it. He had to get out. But he can't articulate that to his son in that moment. And that realization sort of just instantly drives a rift in between the two of them, and Harrison's not moving.
It's beyond the code now. The darkness has taken over fully.
And Harrison sees his father leaving him again. And somewhere in there, there's a realization that the only way this can end is that Dexter needs to die.
Even from the very early conversations I had with Clyde and Scott before any scripts were written, some version of that ending was what was in mind. We spent a good amount of time going over that scene and modifying it and taking things away, adding things, dealing with just the sort of logistics of the world of the scene so that we could zero in on the meat of it. There was just something really affecting about it.
It's heartbreaking.
What I can say is it's surprising but inevitable.
It's rough. Yeah, it's painful.
Sometimes you get what you deserve. Sometimes you get what you need. Maybe this is the ending he needs. I don't know, though. And not just let what we did speak for itself. With Dexter, I'm excited to put something out there that answers some questions that have been floating around, which are essentially, what the hell happened to this guy?
Is there a problem, officer?
I'm gonna need you to step out of the vehicle, sir.
I'm excited to show Dexter's evolution.
Dexter's been away for nearly a decade. What kind of monster will he be?
The fact that Clyde, along with Scott Reynolds and Marco Siega, one of our foundational directors, would be coming in. Gave me that sense that there was a collective appreciation for the fundamentals of the Dexter DNA.
To take a show and give it a completely fresh start and a completely new look was really enticing.
This is all about blending in.
It feels like a new dream and like a new nightmare.
Whoa, easy there. There's a problem? Yeah, I kind of have a thing about blood.
Dexter is in a fictional town called Iron Lake in upstate New York.
Lifesaver, Jimmy.
He, under an alias, has been able to cobble together an actual life.
This is a man who's been working for almost a decade to change himself.
Here, here.
Dexter's as close as he's ever been to entertaining that he can have a real life. But as you can imagine, something's probably got to give.
Take me to the fire, burn. Light up the fire, burn.
It's something that feels fresh and new and bold.
It will be satisfying and controversial.
I think people will be, they might miss the sunshine, but the snow is pretty cool too.
Bravo, Mark.
Michael and I actually ended up living about 4 blocks away from each other in New York, and we met for coffee, and he sort of just talked about, what if this kind of happened? It's on the floor. Are you ready for tonight?
In the original series, Dexter has a relationship with his dead father. An angel on his shoulder at times, but Dexter has this new internalized relationship with a dead family member, in this case, his sister.
It's real cold today.
You're the one that picked this place.
Deb is such an important part of Dexter because she's always been the one to point out the wrong. She is his conscience.
When I came back, it was my goal to comfort him, torture him, repair him, destroy him. Stick to your routine. He's unchecked, unbalanced, with no code. And then Harrison enters.
Harrison.
You can't. Everyone close to you dies.
Deb represents the part of him that has doubt.
Deb, the heartbeat to the Tin Man. She held him accountable.
Sorry, I'm not the guy you're looking for.
Jennifer is a shapeshifter as an actor and able to do so many things. It's a trip, man. It's been really fun, really gratifying.
It has been so much fun. Michael and I laugh our asses off and hope that people aren't listening to our mics because we're making jokes all day.
We love Jen. We love the character Deb. Everybody loves her, and it's just wonderful to have her back in all regards.
The story of this season is the story of someone reckoning with the fact that they're back into active addiction.
Any day when we're shooting and Dexter's doing a kill
Can I just go from, let's just say I'm a friend of a friend?
is an exciting day.
Nice to meet you, Jasper.
The real first kill room that we see is when we kill this character, Jasper, who's a drug dealer.
This is the first time he's been able to execute a kill in a, albeit hasty because of the circumstances, but relatively premeditated, old-school way.
And did I grab it when I came back in or when I got back to his head?
Creepy as it may sound, there was a sort of reverence and a sacred feeling to the set that day that was unique.
It was sacred in a way, in a twisted way.
There is a way that we shoot the kill rooms, and I defaulted right back into that. That was the one place where I was like, you know, the look may be different, the vibe of the show may be different, but this is a touchstone to Dexter and to the audience.
The crew was totally into it. Everywhere from the concept of looking at drawings to watching the construction and doing the details in there and putting the pictures of his victims on the wall as Dexter would do.
The kill room is so iconic to Dexter, we forget that for Michael, it's its own experience.
Tonight's the night.
And Michael, as an actor, goes to another place on a day that Dexter's killing, and we honor that. You know, the main note I get from Michael on a script is, can I not say the words you just wrote and do it with my face? And the answer is always yes, because he's so expressive and it's a masterclass in acting.
I think you've lived long enough.
In a strange and twisted way, it felt like going home. Seeing this ritual fulfilled once again.